Miss.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Good day. My name is MALEK, and I will be leading this presentation. Our presentation will focus on the psychological impacts of war on children and how we can help them. And now taking over is my teammate Yusuf as he will introduce our presentation.
from playgrounds to battlefields, the impact of war on children's minds. This presentation will focus on the psychological impacts on children and how it affects them, and we as a group will highlight the problems that we found as well as the solutions that we propose. Before that, what do you know about war? War is defined as a state of usually open and declared armed hostile conflict between states or nations by the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and it always has a cost: death and bloodshed. Everyone is affected by war, especially children who are not getting the care or treatment they need and deserve, many of them dying or being injured, and millions of places such as Gaza and Syria suffering from mental disorders and trauma such as PTSD. And as quoted here by the OHCHR, Convention on the Rights of the Child calls on countries to recognize the rights of children from exploitation, be it economic or any type of action that can be seen as harmful to the child's health, physical, mental, spiritual, moral, and social development. This is the illegal and moral obligation that everyone must adhere to. And moving on to Malik, who will be introducing the problems and covering the clinical effects.
During our research, we found many major problems, but the most important problems that we found and focused on were clinical effects, media's portrayal, and radicalization. I will now explore the profound psychological impacts of war on children, focusing on challenges such as heightened anxiety and aggression. Children in Syria are constantly stressed by the fear instilled by war. They react anxiously to everyday sounds, while the absence of safe play spaces leads to increased aggression. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, emerges as a significant issue, disrupting both mental health and daily life, particularly in war-torn regions. In response to these challenges, we should focus on the interventions and support systems. Mental health services, humanitarian aid, and education support are highlighted as crucial components in addressing immediate needs through counseling, therapy, and essential resources. The comprehensive approach is essential to fostering resilience, community building, and mutual support, underscoring the necessity of a multi-phase strategy for sustainable recovery in conflict-affected areas. And now Hiba taking over on media's portrayal.
In examining the impact of war on children, it's essential to consider their resilience and adaptiveness in the face of conflict. According to the 2021 documentary from the New York Times about children in Gaza entitled Filmmakers Ask Children, What is Your Dream?, they display a realistic view to coping with their circumstances by demonstrating a sense of responsibility towards their families and a strong desire to semblance of a normal life, which includes attending school and having access to clean water and food. This suggests that children affected by conflict are not passive victims, but active participants in their struggle for normalcy and survival. Children under conflict also are aware of their media representation and are proactive in how they want people to see them. They do not wait for traditional media. More and more children and adolescents in conflict zones increasingly turn to social media to share their experiences and perspectives. This shift represents a move towards self-representation and an effort to control the narrative of their circumstances. By doing so, they become witnesses and documentaries of their own stories. Their contributions on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook can influence public perception, shape policy responses, and even contribute to their legacy by serving as evidence in international forums and agencies. This emergence of this type of citizen journalism has several positive outcomes. It helps deter radicalization by providing an outlet for self-expression and activism, but also empowers these young individuals to advocate for change in their situation and broader policy reforms. The question arises, why do children in conflict zones gravitate towards social media for self-representation? Consider the case of Gaza, where 47% of the population are children and 78% of those have access to the internet. Social media offers the platform for self-motivated children to create and share content without censorship, enabling them to reach a global audience directly. This graph illustrates the significant reach that individual journalists on social media can achieve, comparable to, and in some cases, surpassing traditional news agencies. It highlights the growing importance of personal narratives and citizen journalism in shaping public understanding of conflict and its impact on children. We use some of the most famous journalists that are from Gaza and how they document the ongoing war that has been happening for the past 197 days on Instagram. This shows that there is a battle between real-life journalists taking action live in the scene of war against worldwide news channels such as CNN, where they take reports from multiple news journalists. These large news channels are resourced by millions of dollars, whereas individual journalists are being targeted for showing the truth. In this slide, we use Mataz, Plastia, and Bisan as examples because they have experienced and seen many traumatic events right in front of them with their two eyes, and showcase the trauma for the people around the world to see what's happening, while many of the large news agencies, again, such as CNN, BBC, and ABC News, don't show most of the things that have been happening in Gaza.
Now I'll be examining the issue of radicalization spread among Syrian children, which has been exaggerated by the ongoing conflict in Syria. Something I have to say before continuing is that these children are not to blame for their falling to extremist ideologies due to how fragile their mental states are, as explained in clinical effects. Traumatized by war and deprived of basic needs and education, these children become vulnerable targets for extremist groups who exploit their plight with forced recruitment, economic incentive, propaganda that often paints the outside world as a sort of harmful force, and sometimes organizational connections to local leadership or family can be a more direct path. Many children may also join these organizations due to a loss of a loved one, as can be seen in this graph, which shows around 30% of people join these organizations due to a collective identity. However, there is hope using the following intervention support strategies that I will now list off. Funding organizations that focus on providing psychological care to children in crisis, such as SaveTheChildren.org, strengthening community ties and support networks, as strong communities can be an early net against radicalization, and providing children with a sense of normalcy is crucial, which we can do by ensuring access to quality education and extracurricular activities, enrichment outside of schools, which we can do by funding the areas that need these things the most. Now life will take over for more solutions.
According to our research, we found multiple solutions to address the problems and found that these three highlight the children's mental well-being. These three solutions are most effective. The first solution I will propose is the parental or guardian support during and after war. Supporting children in war zones requires addressing parents' emotional sensitivity, attachment style, and PTSD symptoms. Having parental or guardian support through emotion can help make children feel safe, help them manage their fears, and help them recover in a healthy way. For example, they can show support through emotional help by spending time with them, having the understanding of patience to deal with them. Furthermore, we need to provide immediate aid and intervention. Immediate humanitarian aid should prioritize children's basic needs, including access to basic services like food, shelter, and healthcare. Psychological first aid should reduce post-traumatic stress and support adaptive functioning, including rebuilding daily structures and emotional regulation. For example, organizations can set up places where children can find safety, receive basic needs like food, water, and healthcare, and access psychosocial support. Lastly, we have the school intervention. Schools offer affordable, accessible, and stigma-free treatment programs for various economic and ethnic groups. These programs provide a built-in support structure, restoring a child's sense of security by offering activities that help them process traumatic events, express emotions, and seek help. Schools can establish safe spaces where children can feel secure and express their emotions. And we will end our presentation with the conclusion presented by Malek.
In conclusion, war inflicts severe mental health on children, leaving them vulnerable to anxiety, aggression, and PTSD. Yusuf shed light on the long-lasting psychological trauma children experience in war zones. I delved into the clinical effects, shedding light on heightened anxiety, increased aggression, and the prevalence of PTSD among Syrian children in war-torn regions. Intervention support systems, including mental services, humanitarian aid, and education support, emerge as crucial components in addressing these challenges and fostering sustainable recovery. The media can be a double-edged sword, as Hiba explained. She also explained how it can raise awareness about the plight of children in war, but how it can also exploit them. Farid highlighted the danger of radicalization, with vulnerable children open to extremist ideologies. However, support programs can intervene and help steer them away from such paths. Let's propose practical solutions in addressing like parental support, immediate aid, and school programs to restore a sense of security and well-being for children affected by war. Ultimately, addressing this complex issue requires a global approach that prioritizes the rights and well-being of children caught in conflict. By working together, we can build a more compassionate and supportive global community. Thank you for your time, and now we will take 2 minutes for questions.
Okay, Malek, what methodology did you use in research? And what did you think was the most effective part of it?
We focused on journals, and blogs, mostly on these two because they focus on how journalists show and represent the war that has been happening in many areas. And the most important ones that we found were basically from the ones from the UN and the ones that are effective, basically.
Farid, you covered the aspect of radicalization. How do you think it relates to independent journalism?
Oftentimes, people in difficult situations go down two different paths. A positive one, where they attempt to fix the problem by sharing about it, trying to help people, and getting info into it. And the other path, which is the negative one, is where people end up taking out their frustrations on people that don't deserve it or anything unrelated to it. So we need to fix that.
Yusuf, if you could add another member, what would they have done?
I think, well, we pretty much did everything that we need to do. I think another member would have probably interviewed the people on the ground, not the experts or the organization, the people who are living through this, the people who would give us the most accurate description of what's happening, how they see it through their perspective as victims of this.
Okay, Life, why did you pick these solutions that you covered?
Okay, these solutions were the ones that were recurring and most recommended by experts that have observed and helped conflict areas.
Okay, and Hiba, you in your part of the presentation, I saw that you put comparatives, basically comparing the Plestia, Motaz, these like people basically on social media with big news companies like CNN. Why was that? Why did you think it was like you put them up like as a comparison or for people to see them together on the same side?
Because of the phenomenon of independent journalism, which has eclipsed multi-million-dollar corporate journalism, and they're beating funded companies.
Okay, so basically, like these independent journalists, like they have a lot of followers?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.